Hey, fellow writers, who is the hero of your story? Sam here with another Friday video for you, and I want you to think about that question for a minute. Who is the hero for your story? There's a lot of layers to that question potentially. I'm not just asking literally, tell me the name of your main character. I'm asking kind of who the focus is and who the story really, the real story is about. I will elaborate that on that and why I'm talking about that today in a minute. But yeah, happy Friday. Hope everyone's doing well. I didn't post an update last week. It was a good Friday. Things are going well for us. For me, I'm still trudging along in the querying trenches. Actually, that's not quite true. I'm revising my novel in order to start querying it again. I've been working on revisions. It's slow going because I'm also working on other writing projects, one of which I will talk to you about in this video. And then just a few other things have happened too. I also started querying a children's book that I wrote for my son, and I wanted to publish it. I've only sent out one query for that so far. So I got my hands on a few different things. That's maybe why you haven't heard an update on the novel in a while. I am still working on it. It's a little bit on the back burner, but my goal is maybe summertime, May, June-ish, to um, get that out there again, to finish my revisions and get it out there again into querying trenches because, I still want to publish it sooner than later, hopefully. So anyway, that's the update right now. Okay, back to my topic. Who is the hero of your story? And I want to just kind of tell you why I'm thinking about this. As some of you know, I do write some nonfiction as well. My fiction, creative fiction is my passion. Um, but my day job, I work as a content writer, editor for a nonprofit organization called Seed Company. I have them on my jacket right here. You can see SEED Company if you're interested in checking us out. We do Bible translation into all the remaining languages of the world that don't have the Bible yet. So that's at least that's the goal, is to get the Bible into all the remaining languages of the world. Um, so I do some nonfiction writing. I'm kind of like a reporter. Now I've classified it before as being like a cross between reporter and marketing because like a newspaper reporter, you have to be objective. My job, we are telling stories like a reporter would, but we're trying to make a point, or we're trying to we're trying to focus and impact on certain things. So we are, we're not obviously not completely objective. We're trying to be promotional and such, but it is so a cross between a reporter and marketing. And what was I going to say? Yeah, just you might hear sometimes people ask if you've I don't know if any of you have worked in newspapers, but even on like TV movie portrayals of newsrooms, they ask the struggling reporter like, "What's the story here?" The reporter is like, "I know something is going on here. I can feel it, but I can't quite piece it together." And the chief, who's usually probably this grumpy old man who smokes a cigar and all that stuff. I'm just going by like the newspapers where Superman and Spider-Man work, but anyway. He probably says something like, "What's the story? Find me the story." And I guess what they kind of mean is not just the details, although details are important, but like, who is the story about? Who are we want a human interest focus, a human interest piece. Who is the story about here? What's the main takeaway? What's the real, I guess, so what of the story is kind of what they're asking. So that's the kind of thing I do at work. I try to, most of it secondhand. I get stories from sources overseas, and I kind of write them up or edit them to make them look pretty. But we kind of ask, out of this information, what's the real story here? What's really happening? And the other thing I've been working on, well, actually, one thing about that. Let me give a quick plug because you can actually read one of my stories right now. I took a trip to Indonesia last year in August. I talked about it before on these videos, podcasts. If you want to go back and look about it, I was able to see two of our big. They call them dedications. It's these events where people group has a published New Testament in their language, and they hold a huge cultural party for it. I was able to see two of those cultural parties in remote groups of Indonesia last August. And I wrote about it in the Seed Company annual report, which is now available on our website. That's why I want to point this out to you, this logo. If you go to seedcompany.com, again, that's SEED company.com. I think it comes up in a pop-up right now, just like a pop-up button that says download the annual impact report. So you're looking for something called the annual report, and it might come up in a pop-up. If not, you can probably search the site for it, the 2023 annual impact report is what you're looking for. You might have to put in your email address or something, but to let you download the PDF. I have a story in there, a 5-page spread about my trip to Indonesia. I mean, there's other cool stories in there too. I encourage you to check it out, read them all. But if you want to see kind of the work I'm doing and some of my writing there, the story about Indonesia and the remote people groups there is in that document. Go check it out, seedcompany.com. So I'm doing that these days, and my other side project that I mentioned at the beginning is a history of my church, because the church I attend currently, it's celebrating 50 years this year. They started in 1974, and one of our elders asked me to kind of, he knows I'm a writer by trade and by hobby, and he asked me to kind of write a history, like a book length, a detailed history about the members, just how it founded, how it was founded, the stories over the years and stuff. So I've been doing a lot of interviews. Well, actually, I've done most of the interviews already. It's time to start taking all the things I've gathered from the interviews and putting it to writing, putting it to paper. But I am doing that. It's just it takes time. But that's my other nonfiction project right now, and I'm kind of focusing on that over the novel right now because I have to get at least the first chapter done this month in April. But that's okay. I'm working on it. I'm enjoying it. It's just there's a lot on my plate. So anyway, I'm running these, in my day job, and I'm in this church project. I have these two different nonfiction things I write for, both, I guess, nonprofit or, religious organizations. And I'll just go ahead and give a disclaimer. I am going to talk about my faith here because that's part of what I'm writing about this time. I know not everyone here shares my same faith background, and I'm not trying to preach. I understand there's a lot of different people listening to this. That's okay. But I'm just going to be open. I'm talking about it today, so you'll hear it, and hopefully that's okay with you. Anyway, so yeah, I'm writing for my work, which is a Christian nonprofit, and for my church, and we kind of sometimes ask again. In writing these stories, I kind of come back to that question of who's the hero, or who's the hero of your story. What's your story really about? Because obviously it's different in these nonfiction pieces than in a narrative, than in a fiction novel. In a fiction novel, you have a good guy, maybe a team of good guys in my case, but you have one to a few good guys, and the hero is usually pretty obvious. In nonfiction stories, when you're acting like a reporter, it's not so obvious. You might have all kinds of things. You might have I don't know. I'm just giving examples of some of had a natural disaster. I mean, that's not my case, but, or like a condition like if you work for a nonprofit, like homelessness or hunger or something. It's like what's the hero here? Well, I mean, you kind of have to ask yourself still. Obviously, it looks different, but I think it's still important to ask yourself who is the hero, and in some cases, who is the villain of this story. And I'd recommend Donald Miller's work on the story brand formula. If you haven't heard of that, go check it out, because he talks about how that applies to our marketing and such. But in some cases, the hero is like an ordinary individual, like maybe it's like the people group who I'm writing about. And of course, I don't know them all by name. I can't highlight the whole people group, but it's like these people got the Bible into their language. There's a few translators who worked hard to make that happen, because we use indigenous translators working in their own language. So that happens. And then when I was writing my church history project, I did write a short forward that was about myself. I was, most of it's not about me, but I was like, I'm part of the history too, and I have a testimony how this church meant a lot to us in a time of transition. So I wrote that story. It was like 3 or 4 pages. But then I was like, I'm not the hero of this story. I kind of in my forward, I kind of had to ask myself who was, and I was tempted to make it I guess the people who founded the church, like some of the original pastors and the faithful members. There are a few people who have been there since the beginning, 50 years ago. Of course, some have passed on and some have moved elsewhere and all that stuff. But there's a few, and I was like, I am going to tell some great stories about some faithful believers here and some faithful people, and that's all good, well and good. But I kind of realized in that case, I don't want them to be the hero either, because when I'm writing for at least for a spiritual or religious purpose, I really would say the hero of that story is God. So, and again, that doesn't have that may or may not apply to your writing depending on what you do. But at Seed Company at work, we're writing for a non we're writing for a religious cause. We believe in God's word, the Bible, and so we want to say, here's what God is doing, and He's the hero of the story, and you can join in with this work. It's kind of what we're saying. And even at And even in the church project that I'm working on, I'm telling other people's stories. Other than that one forward, the focus is not on me. Um, I'm telling other people's stories, which is great. But I'm like, these are mere people. I don't want to make it sound like the church, or I don't want to make it sound like the people or the church did all the heavy work by themselves. I want to put the focus to God, because that's what we're about. And so, yeah, so I just kind of had to have that revelation in mind with kind of those projects I'm writing about, my church project and such. I was like, the hero here. I mean, he's behind the scenes. You could say he's obviously I can't interview God like I did for a lot of those people, but it's so you know he's behind the scenes. But I kind of want the focus of this to be what God is doing, or what God has done, rather than what people have done. Even though there's some great stories about people, and it will seem like that at times, that the focus is on people. I was like, I really want this to be about God and what He is doing and has done. So that was kind of the realization I came to. Um, in these side projects I'm working on, I had to ask myself, who was the real hero? Who's the story really about? And the answer for me, in this case, was God. How does this apply to your writing? How does this apply to your fiction writing? I'm sure you could ask that all different ways. I'm almost out of time here, so I don't want to belabor the point. But even in a fictional story, I mean, yes, you have usually you have a more clear cut hero and villain. You're like, it's not that hard to figure out. But sometimes there are like characters who surprise you. Maybe like a side character who ends up being heroic, or who ends up being more of a focus than you realize. Maybe the issue is, I know we have a whole other debate about whether or not your fiction writing should contain a moral or a message, and to what extent. But sometimes the hero is like the human spirit overcoming adversity, or just like like something like that. If there's a particular issue you're dealing with, if there's a particular focus. So I guess what I'm asking you today is, go beyond just the main character, go beyond just the surface characters and the surface plot, kind of find the metaphysical plot, or I guess maybe the metaphorical, philosophical, metaphysical struggle there, the deeper conflict, underline the big conflict, and what's the hero, like what's the good force? I mean, whether God or something else that you want to focus on, and then what's the villain? I mean, what's the problem? Even if the problem is just like loneliness or something, or despair. Like, what's the problem? And figure out that, figure out your why, figure out the main focus and the main hero and villain you're trying to highlight in the story, and then I think your writing will be a lot more impactful and meaningful, because you'll know who or what you're trying to focus and showcase. That's my tip for this week. Hope it helps somebody. Again, I encourage you to check out the Seed Company annual report if you're interested in seeing the kind of work that we do. I have a story in there, and a lot of my talented coworkers do too. So go to seedcompany.com, check that out. Thanks for listening, reading, watching, and all that stuff. Have a great Friday. Bye.